Alrighty, excellent. Alrighty, guys. So you've been given an extension to submit this assessment next week. Are there any, just before I start, please let me just sort of give this opportunity to anyone that might have questions on assessment 1, the marking of it, accessing the marks and accessing the feedback on the first assessment. Are there any comments on it or any questions that I can answer quickly now before we get into assessment 2? I'll give you some feedback right now on assessment 1 because I think that's important feedback for you to then take into assessment 2. Any questions on assessment 1?
I just have one quick question. With the feedback, I'm only able to see that I got, for example, 4 out of 5 for a question. Are there any additional comments or is it just the marks?
So what I did is I put the marking per question, and then I should have actually indicated that you can then use the rubric as feedback. So if you go to the rubric, you'll see if you got 4 out of 5, then the rubric explain what a 4 out of 5 is and what a 5 out of 5 is. And if you got maybe 8 out of 10, then the rubric actually explains if you got 8 out of 10 what that is, and it actually says what is either missing or what still needed to be included. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And I'll do the same for the summative assessment or for your final assessment as well. Just give you a mark breakdown, and then you can then use the rubric to check against the feedback against it. That's the only way I can find for now. Alternatively, I can use the rubric itself, but I haven't been able to find a way of including the rubric in the marking, the online marking that we are required to do. So in the past, what I used to do is, and this is actually what I did, I marked your assessments 2 weeks ago, and I downloaded all the assessments and I physically marked it with my iPad and with a pen on my iPad. And then I used the rubric and I would put little comments and marks in it. And then I would upload the documents back onto the course and then sort of release it. Then you'll see the comments on your assessment. But what happened was that SACAP want us to actually use the Turnitin Thai marking software to be consistent across all of the modules, and also for that marking to live there, for it to have a record there, which makes absolute sense for them to be able to refer back to it instead of having to go back to a lecturer and ask them, can you please send us the stuff? They'll have access to it. So that's really what happened with the marking. It was done, but I wasn't able to release the marks because I didn't use the proper mechanism. But for the final assessment, I know now what to do. That's a good question. Any other question or any other comments on assessment 1? All right. Please jump in. Please ask questions. And I really appreciate having that interaction, especially with something like this. This is it is literally an application-based case study. It's such a great case study because all of the questions are really practical questions. There's 1 or 2 theoretical questions, but all of the questions actually ask you to do something that you as a HR officer, or you as a HR manager, or you as a junior HR manager, or a junior HR officer or HR coordinator would generally do in a workspace. So that is what I quite like about it. So just a very quick overview. It's 2,200 words. Please, I mean, if I look at the word count, if I look at what's required, you shouldn't really go over it. I do give allowance for about 10 to 15% over the word count. But I mean, if you look at some of the questions and how the questions are asked, you shouldn't really go over it. I think you'll struggle to get up to 2,500 words at the maximum. But do try to stay within the word count because it's quite an important thing. All right. I see Kelly has joined us. Hi there, Kelly. Welcome. So let's have a look at the first question. So tonight's session, I'll work through each question, and at each question, I just want to sort of pause and then invite some comments, invite some questions on the question, and then we'll move on to the next one. Is that all right? So question 1 is the same as your model engagement sort of task that I set you. And most of you guys did the task quite well. Well done on that. I was going through it over the weekend, and I was sort of giving you marks on it and sort of looking at it. So all of you did it perfectly. There's quicker ways of doing it. I do know that I sort of included that video, and all of you guys sort of used that piece of software in order to create it, which is great. I mean, I've just literally used this, what I've got here in front of me. I used this. I got it from, where am I going? I just need a pen here. Okay, here we go. I got this from literally organizational hierarchy in PowerPoint. And then I just included just some random names in it. And it's right there in PowerPoint. And the same functionality is in Word as well. So if you are going to use it, then in Word as well, you can just literally click on it, insert. You go on the insert, and once you're there, there's insert smart art, and under smart art, you'll find hierarchy, and then you just click one of them. So, I mean, this word count doesn't really count because, I mean, they're going to be in little blocks, and they should make sense, you know. So that is question 1. As I said, quite a few of you completed the sort of model engagement activity, so it's there. You can literally copy and paste it into your document. All right. Any questions on question 1 or any comments on question 1? If you guys aren't comfortable talking, you can always just drop a note in the chat function as well. I am keeping an eye on the chat as well. That'd be great. And if somebody is on WhatsApp, just let the folks know that's on WhatsApp that we are here, we're online, if they want to still join us. Or if they can't join us, maybe they can just post a question on it. So if somebody can just go onto WhatsApp and just sort of just let the guys know. So that's question 1, very straightforward. It asks an organizational chart. My question to you is, to anybody can answer, maybe Farron can answer, why is an organizational chart so important in an organization? What does it show? Or maybe anybody else can answer as well. Why is it so important? Every company has it. Your company has it. Anyone?
I think it reflects the different levels in the company as to who sits where, and also reflects the reporting line.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's Mabatu. Thank you very much for that. And that's it shows, and that's the important thing. Not just internally, it also externally shows to people externally. It shows reporting lines, and we call them, so it's reporting lines in HR. We call them sort of, I don't want to call control lines, but sort of direct reporting lines. It also shows administrative responsibility. So if the financial manager needs to apply for leave, they'll send the leave form most probably to the assistant, and the assistant will make sure that the CEO signs it off. It shows relationships and also shows relationships. And when I say relationships, it almost shows like levels in the organization, so that people know which levels. Now, this is an anomaly. So in most cases, the assistant isn't necessarily higher than the financial manager at a higher level. It's just that they sort of report directly to the CEO because of the nature of their particular job. Remember, the first assessment, we had to look for a secretary. So the secretary would report to the CEO. That doesn't make the secretary or the assistant at a higher level than operations manager. That's why these lines, or we call them span of control, that's why the span of control is so important. Good. Desmond, you can use the software, or as I said earlier, for this particular thing that I just did here in the PowerPoint, I just use Smart Art, and there's an option there for hierarchy, and then you can just insert that as well. So whichever one works for you. I mean, I've even suggested to students to draw it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it and then put the picture into your document as well. I mean, that can also work. I'm fine with whichever way you work it, as long as I can see this is what the organizational chart looks like. This is the relationship between the different people mentioned in the case study. All right, makes sense? Good. Question 2. So question 2 is quite a chunky question, quite a substantial question, sort of in 3 parts. Introduce the new supervisor to the concept of multi-skilling. So that is one theoretical concept. So make sure that you understand, guys, I'm drawing with a mouse here. Theory, I'm sure that's theory, that says theory. And development through training, and advise the new manager on the basic policies which should be introduced to support the onboarding and skill development of workers. Now, the question is not really a great question the way the question is phrased, because there's just so many things going on. So what are you supposed to do? The first thing is explain multi-skilling. That's the first thing you need to do. Explain what is multi-skilling. So that's point number 1. And then the next thing you need to do is advise the new manager on the basic policies which should be introduced to support the onboarding and skill development of workers. So once you've explained multi-skilling, you will then go into policies or suggestions, really. So I see, that's why I don't like this word as well. So you'll just go, so it's explain multi-skilling, and the next part of your answer is suggestions on onboarding and skills development for workers. That's all you need to do. So the theory of multi-skilling, and then the second part is onboarding and skills development. The next one then is a paragraph. So this is like one paragraph. So that's paragraph 1. Then you've got another paragraph, which is paragraph 2, describe the importance of talent management in human resource management. And guys, I always tell students to follow the T principle. Have you guys heard of the T principle in terms of writing, especially writing against case studies and writing theory? So T stands for theory, explanation, and application. And it almost forms the basis of every paragraph that you write, especially a question like this, which is just a theoretical question, should be structured around that. So when I say theory, you introduce the theory. You say, talent management is defined as per Amos, it's defined as this and this and this. It's important, then you move on to explanation. It's important in human resource management because of these and these reasons. An example would be when developing the skills of a assistant supervisor or assistant manager, managing that talent in order for that person to be able to take over or be able to be promoted into a management position, etc., etc. So you've introduced the theory, you've explained what it is, and then you've applied it with an example. And when you look at your writing, when you look at your paragraph, you'll be able to see, okay, I'm introducing the concept, theory, talent management is this and this and this. Let me explain it in terms of human resource management, and then finish off with an example. So when you get questions like this, and there's a couple of these questions in the assessment, always try to follow and structure your paragraph in the T principle format. The last part of this question is discuss what you would recommend as the essential 5 HRM policies that new employees need to know when they join Friendly Cafe. Describe these briefly. So this is slightly different from the previous paragraph. So this is your third paragraph. And this would literally be you saying, the 5 policies are dum 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 dum. The first policy deals with, the second policy is maybe the leave policy, or the third one is the smoking policy, or the fourth one is the sick leave policy, or the fifth one is the, security of information policy, use of company property policy, and so forth. I see, Damon, you've got a question. Since we did not get a template like the first one, is the case on the same? Absolutely, Desmond, absolutely. The first assessment template was you can just copy and just rewrite everything in there. Please, guys, what I did find, and this is what increased your Turnitin score, was that students didn't delete the questions that I put into the template. So students got like a 32% or like a 39% Turnitin score, and it wasn't because of their own writing, is they just left in the questions that I copied into the template from the assessment, and they didn't delete that. So before you start writing your assessment 2, delete everything first, and then get to question 2, and then you write out question 2. You don't write the question, you just give you the answer. All right, does that make sense? Yes?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So question 2 in 3 parts. The first part is the theory of multi-skilling, and then some suggestions on onboarding and skills development. And then the second paragraph is the importance of talent management in HR using the T principle. And the final paragraph is the 5 HRM policies for new people. Great. That's 2 questions down. Let's have a look. Question 3. The owner has now introduced the new supervisor to Friendly Cafe, but staff members appear to be too busy to talk to the new manager. It is the breakfast run traffic after all. What are important steps to follow as HR manager to ensure that the new supervisor feels welcome and inducted into the new role on their first day of work? This was very well done. I asked this question as a model engagement question, and a lot of you got it right, because first of all, induction staff shouldn't be expected to stop what they're doing just to meet the new manager, especially at a time when it's busy. So at that time, the new manager, especially at the busy times, the new manager could be doing some other things, maybe on the administration side, or even just observation. Especially in this context, think about this. This is a restaurant. A lot of what the new manager needs to learn needs to come through observation. They need to watch and they need to learn, because it's very difficult for somebody to stand still and go, okay, new manager, this is what we're going to do now, and this is how we do it. And also, when you're employing somebody as a manager, your expectation is, and your assumption is, as a human resource professional, that that person comes with a significant amount of experience working in similar context, working in restaurants. They should be able to know what is going on. And they should be able to observe and be able to see, okay, in my previous work, in my previous restaurant, this is what we did. And I see they do things slightly differently here. And they should have made little notes. So the new manager should have been, as part of this time, should have been standing there with a little notebook and going, okay, I see they do this, I see they do this, I see they do this. Once the breakfast run is done, then ideally, the new manager would have been introduced to everybody, or right at the beginning of the shift, the introduction would have been, this is a new manager, they're starting, this is the first day of work. During breakfast, they'll just stand and observe. And once the breakfast traffic is settled and we've gone through that and we've done the first sitting or the second serving, we will then have a small team meeting in which we'll introduce the new manager further, and the new manager will be able to ask questions and introduce themselves as well. So that should be written into the first day induction plan. So make sure that this isn't too long. Half a page is more than enough. And giving a breakdown like 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, they're doing this. 9 o'clock till this time, they're doing this. You can do 30-minute increments as well if you want to, but 1 hour increments is more than sufficient. Just to give a breakdown and also sort of put yourself in that space going, okay, so if there's breakfast, there might be lunch. Are they open for dinner? Do they serve dinner? It's a cafe, so most probably they do quite a bit of work. They do quite a bit of breakfast and quite a bit of lunch, not so much dinner. So that would be my suggestion. Does that make sense at all? Can I just have a thumbs up from everyone that's on? Dimone, Farron, Goku, Kellyanne, Liana, Michaela, Roberto, Tasman. Alrighty, I've got 2 thumbs so far. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there we go. I do that just to check if you guys are still listening, because sometimes people put the Zoom on and then they go off and go and do other things. So that's good. Awesome. Thank you very much. So now let's move on to question 4. The 4 types of leave. Again, a very simple question. It comes straight from the textbook. And again, this is about making sure that you understand the restaurant context. Service workers, what type of leave are they entitled to? Sick leave, annual leave, family leave, family responsibility leave. Are they entitled to paternity leave? Are they entitled to maternity leave? What type of contracts do they have? So you're going to have to assume that that this is a fantastic cafe and that everybody is full-time employed and they all have full-time contracts. They are not part-time staff and they're not casual staff. But let's be realistic about this. In a restaurant context, you'll find that most of your waitering staff tend to be your casual staff. And then your kitchen staff tend to be your full-time staff or possibly contract staff. And then your administration support staff tend to be your more full-time staff members. So your supervisor, your restaurant manager, maybe the back office manager. But then you'll find that the waitering staff tend to be your casual staff. So that's realistic. That's in the real world. That is the case. Now the question is, what's the case in this particular context? And then what are people entitled to? So what I want you to do for me, yes, I've got a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you wanted to explain the types of the leave as well, or just list it out.
I need you to just explain, but literally like two sentences.
Just in one sentence.
Yeah, one sentence or two sentences, absolutely.
Okay.
And then again, make some assumptions about it. Say, assuming that this person is a full-time employed staff member with a contract, therefore they will qualify for this. If they are, however, casual staff, they won't qualify for this or this.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's sort of critical thinking around the answer. Makes sense.
It does make sense. My only thing was the word count, because that actually confused me quite a bit, because if I have to explain a little bit in that, the 50 words is not enough.
It's fine. For me, it's more about if I look at your answer and I read your answer, I should be able to go, yeah, this person understands it. So just write down what you think you need to write down.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I guess the bigger thing here is to not exceed the overall word count, right?
Not to exceed the overall word count, absolutely.
Makes sense.
Each question word count is more of a guideline. In some cases you'll go over, and in other cases you'll be way below that. But in total, as I said, you won't get to 2,500 words. I know the assessment said, Desmond, I see your hand. I know that the assessment says 2,200. I give you a bit of leeway to 2,500. So that is my lecturer's discretion or my educator's discretion of 15 to 20%. But you trust me, at the end of it, you're not going to get to that much. Okay. That's a very good question. Thank you very much, Mbatu. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, thank you. Desmond, you've got a question? You've got your hand up?
Yes. Hi.
Hi there.
I was wondering, so maternity and paternity leave, do they go hand in hand or they separate?
I would put them together. In this particular case, I mean, it's in this particular case, they're only asking for 4. I'll put those two together. Okay, I know they're separate, but yeah, I mean, your big 4 is your, annual leave, family responsibility leave, sick leave, and then one other, which I'll leave blank because again, it might not apply to this context, to the restaurant context.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good question. Thank you very much, Desmond. Is it Desmond or is it Desmond? Desmond. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, Desmond. Awesome. Great stuff. Those are all very good questions. As you can gather up to this point, the assessment is actually very, very practical. And this is what I really like about it. It doesn't ask you to write reams and reams of theory, which is actually it doesn't help you. It doesn't teach you anything, because assessment should also be a teaching tool, should also be a learning opportunity. And that is why I like this assessment so much, because all of the questions are very, very practical. There's 1 or 2 which are theoretical, which is also important for your role as a future human resource manager and moving on after HR, doing further studies as well. Halfway through, question 5. One of the things that need to be changed is the shift timetable of the workers, as in winter there's an extra shift to accommodate workers who need to leave friendly cafe before it's too dark and potentially dangerous. Design a new 1-week work shift schedule timetable for workers. Please note that friendly operates from Monday to Saturday and is closed on a Sunday. Please make sure that you use a little table format. So you'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sort of, where am I? Running across like that. And then the people's names sort of down there, and then possibly, or you can have another one would be sort of Monday, Tuesday to Saturday running like this, and then you have the different shifts. You got shift 1, shift 2, shift 3 running down like this, and then what you sometimes will put in, you'll put in, why am I on 2 different screens, my cursor? So that's one way of doing it. Alternatively, come up with a way that works for you. And some of you might work in a space where you draw up timetables. You maybe have a shift schedule, or you've seen what the shift schedule looks like. As long as it's a single page, again, the word count, you're not going to write 100 words. A little table. You don't need to explain anything. You just say question 5 and have your little table there. And that's it. That's sufficient for me. If you want to go into a little explanation, say 2 waiters or 5 people on shift 1 and 3 people on shift 2, or whatever the case may be. If you want to go into further explanation, sort of just do that underneath the shift timetable. All right, Desmond.
So, sorry, do we make the shift schedule according to the current employees that are there? Like, I think they're like 5 or something.
Yeah. Use the current employees.
Okay, thank you.
There isn't a lot of them.
Exactly, because I was looking at the word count and I'm like, there's like 5 people there.
I'm also looking at some of these questions where people are complaining, as like, some of the people are complaining. Who are they? It's the 2 people that works in the kitchen. I know exactly who they are. Don't say some people are complaining. so it's quite funny that the case study itself, there's like only 5 people there, in the business and in the restaurant, and the questions are like, oh, it's this big company, but it's not
Would have
about.
made sense if they were like, maybe if the people maybe the permanent people had like casualties relieving them, like relief staff, then it would have maybe made sense.
Yes, absolutely, and possibly there is a so let's have a look at one of the other questions, where I'm gonna ask you to make some assumptions, where I'm gonna ask you to bring in, to think outside of the box of what the case study is. All right. So hold on to that one, Desmond. Cool. So that's question 5. Question 6, the staff believe that they're entitled to taxi and bus fare and travel allowances. Is this included in the Basic Conditions Act? No. How best can the supervisor respond to this request? Oh, this is such an interesting question, because, and I'm not going to lead you on. I want you to really struggle with the implications of this. So think through it. You are, and this is the reality of it. This is the job that you are doing and going to do. This is what you signed up for. And this is going to come out very harsh, and you need to hold on to this, because this is important. In an organization, who do you work for? Do you work for the employees to ensure that their best interests are met and that they are looked after and that they are happy, quote unquote? Or do you look after the best interest of the managers to make sure that they are happy, quote unquote, to make sure that their interests are met? Or are you the voice for the organization? And now, what does that mean? Being the voice for the organization and being the voice for for the law is important. So a manager might want to do something. A worker pisses them off, excuse my language, or makes them angry, or a worker comes to work with an attitude. The manager doesn't like that. He then wants to, or she then wants to bring them up for charges, subordination, or whatever charges they want to lay against you. You are there not to protect the employee, not to be the side of the boss. You are there to be the voice for the legal requirements. So you step in and you go, oof, you can go ahead and do that, but just remember that you're going to end up exposing the company to a possible CCMA case. So this is legally what can be done, and this is lawfully what should be done. And in most cases, as an HR manager, you have to enforce that. You have to enforce the legal obligation that the company has towards the employee and ultimately to protect the company. You're not there to make the employees feel loved and, motivated and protect their rights and protect their jobs for them. You're also not there to just jump when the manager says, oh, I want to get rid of that person, or I want to, I don't like that person, and how do we get rid of them? You should always be the voice of reason. You should always be, because remember, every action has a reaction. And every time, especially with our labor legislation, and our labor legislation are there for good reason. Our labor legislation are there for good reason. Some people might say, oh, it is too onerous and it protects the worker and you can't fire people any longer. And if only our labor laws wasn't so strict, because then we would get a lot more things done. That's nonsense. That's a lie. Labor laws and our labor legislation are in place in order to ensure that power dynamic between capital and labor is held in balance. There's a bigger macro argument which says that if our labor legislation was less onerous and maybe more freer, would a lot more companies come and invest in South Africa? That's not an argument. International companies invest in South Africa for specific reasons. And I'm telling you, labor legislation is not one of them, or a deterrent. Labor legislation is not a deterrent. Why would Amazon be building a 5 billion rand head office down here in Cape Town? Why would there be so many companies that are investing billions into South Africa? Because of the labor legislation? No, because there's an opportunity for them to grow within the market, but also to export their products to other countries around South Africa. So you sorry, I'm going a bit off on a rant here, but you as the HR manager, you as the HR officer are there to protect the company. You're not there to protect the worker or to protect the manager. You're there ultimately to protect the company from any potential legal consequences of decisions that might be made. And sometimes that means disciplining an employee. Sometimes that means telling a manager that, no, you can't do that. Sorry, that's illegal. And then having to stand by it. Especially if that manager is like 2 levels above you. That even makes it even more difficult. Sometimes you even report to that manager. They're like your manager that you have to go to for your increase, and you have to stand up against them, which makes it even more interesting. So what does the Basic Conditions Employment Act say about taxi and bus fare and travel allowances? No, employees are not entitled to it. But now the question is, if it's not within the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, was it part of the employment contract that was signed? And that I will leave up to you to think through that, to sort of reason through that. So you can either say that no, as part of the employment contract that was signed, no, it's not part of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, blah, blah, and you can quote the section. However, as part of the employment contract that was signed, when employees work a certain shift, they are given a travel allowance, or they will be provided with suitable transport and safe transport to go home. And that can be written into the employment contract, which is different. And remember, if that is written into the employment contract, it can also be taken away as well. It's not an entitlement. Does that make sense? A very interesting question and a very difficult question, especially if we think about the conditions under which people have to get to work, sometimes leaving home very early and then getting to home very late. Does that make sense at all? It's only 5 marks, thank goodness. So don't spend too much time on it, but I really want you to pause and think through that particular question. All right. Liana, yes, please. I would like you to just draw up a actual schedule. You referring to the previous question, I take it? Yeah, just draw up a actual table, and or what it might look like, an example of it, and then maybe just a short explanation at the bottom. Does that make sense? Just give me an indication. Question 7. And just take a sip of tea. Now things get interesting. Whoa. The new supervisor has been appointed and soon receives complaints from workers in the kitchen that they're unhappy with being expected to work long hours. They're also not satisfied with the fact that it's not clear who is supposed to do what, etc. So this is a common complaint. Now the first part of this question, you need to resolve immediately. This is incorrect, or there's something else going on. So what I mean by incorrect, if you got shift workers that have a specific shift that is 8 hours long, then people aren't supposed to work past that 8 hours, except if it is working overtime. And overtime is not compulsory. Overtime is voluntary. So people can choose not to work overtime. All right. So you have to sort of work through this first part of the question and be clear about what this means. So you can say they're working long hours because they're working additional overtime, or you can say that they're working past the hours that is in their schedule or their scheduled amount of hours as per their shift. They're also not satisfied because it's not clear who's supposed to do what. So now again, the next question then is there a JD in place? You guys know what the JD is? It's a fancy acronym for what?
Job description.
Job description, absolutely. So is there a JD in place? So again, some assumptions here. Often asked to end up being asked the same task, and there's a duplication, time wasting, conflict. The cleaners do not feel like any career growth. So now the first thing you need to resolve is the first part of this question. Again, not a very great question, but you kind of have to now just break it down into three different aspects. So the first aspect of question 7 is resolve this. you need to be clear. Is there a job description so people should know what they're supposed to be doing? Are they working outside of the shift? Are they working longer than their shift? What is going on there? And you need to tell me what is going on there in that first paragraph. Then the second part of it is about the cleaners do not feel there's career growth. One possible explanation for this is overall dissatisfaction about the design of jobs. So the second part is resolving this issue. And here I'm looking for something along the lines of job design, the theory of it. So job design is important because of this and this and this reasons, based on what is based on the case study, or based on the or from what the case study presents, it is not clear that the jobs were designed appropriately, something like that. So you almost like comment on the case study after you've explained the theory of job design. And then you then link that back into, okay, so if this is what job design is, how do we design it better for cooks, for waiters and cleaners, to be redesigned creative to work to meet the workers' needs? So this is a chunky question. I see your hand, Desmond. So this is a chunky question, and it's almost like in three different parts that you have to answer it. All right, Desmond, you've got a question?
Yes, can I circle back to the TEA thing that you just introduced previously?
Yeah.
Can we use that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thing?
Yeah. Theory, explanation, and application. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So this is, I mean, job design in itself is, some say it's more of an art than a science, but it lies at the heart of process design. So you design a process, a specific business process, and then you decide, then you have to work out, okay, what skills are required in order to make that process work. You then determine how that job then is put together. What are the skills areas that's required? What are the experience levels that's required? What's the knowledge areas that's required? And then you build up the job in that way. And then you do research to find out, what does that job look like in the marketplace? Does that job exist? And this is where the science comes in, because sometimes you need someone to do a specific thing, and it doesn't, there's no example of that thing anywhere in the industry. Then you have to look at the closest thing. So for instance, quite funny actually, at the moment, there's some adverts on LinkedIn looking for tutors to teach things like AI and AI prompting. And that is all new. I mean, what is an AI prompt tutor? They're looking for people to actually speak to AI and write up the responses and criticize the way they're responding in order to make the AI better. So it's almost like having a conversation with the AI. But the job, so that is the job. But the requirements are, they're looking for people with like master's degrees. And I'm like, what? And then I realized, when I was looking through what they were training the AI on, it was highly technical legal documents and highly technical legal stuff that only a person with a master's degree in law would fully comprehend and fully understand. And the only thing they need to do, like for 6 hours a day, is to type in questions, read through what the AI is saying, criticize it, suggest to the AI where to improve, how to improve their answer, and so forth. Now, a year ago, that job did not exist, but it did in a different form. you would have that particular job is actually suited for a legal, we call them a legal copywriter. So legal copywriter is a person that writes sort of legal contracts. They sort of read through legal context, legal volumes that get published, legal books that get published. They sort of the copywriters and editors that would read through these legal documents in these books and stuff. And they'll laws that get published, they would read through it. They'll make sure that the commas are in the right place and they'll edit it. And I'm like, I was fascinated by it. I mean, so that's a job. You know, so it's a business process that needed to be completed, and they needed to design a job around it. And then they started advertising for a specific job that a year ago did not exist. And that was fascinating. Great.
Can
Yes.
I just ask the third part of this question?
Yes.
Is this where I would go and maybe touch on the job descriptions of the cook and the cleaner, for example?
Absolutely. So you'll say this would be a better job description because it's almost like a response to this part. Because what you'll find if you read through the case study, you'll see that there aren't job descriptions. There's no, sorry, spoiler alert, there isn't any. And that is why there is this sort of conflict and why there's this friction, because nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. So this
I'm assuming I'm just gonna leave the wages out because there is no waiter in the case study. Okay.
But and again, this is where I said earlier. So this is where I wanted to sort of look ahead, and you can go, okay, so there isn't any waiters, but when you employ the casual staff as waiters, this is actually what they should be doing.
Okay, gotcha.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Is that clear for everybody? I know this is one of the questions which I wasn't very happy with because first of all it had 8 in it. And it was like all in these little bits and pieces, and it wasn't very clear as to what you needed to do. But is that clear for everybody? I know you can go back to listen to me again, because what I'll do is I will upload this recording to YouTube and then post the YouTube link for you to have a listen to it again, so you can pause and rewind. All right. Great stuff. Then, and you can also just skip past all my rants and my interesting topics that I'm adding in. There is no question 8. You must probably have realized that. But what I want you to do, let me just stay there. Even though there's no question 8, just keep the question numbers as they are in the assessment. All right, so don't change the question numbers in the assessment because there isn't a question 8. Okay, does that make sense? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. Advise the supervisor on what he can do to communicate better with workers of the Friendly Cafe to address the low staff morale and frustration. I'm not going to talk much about this question. I want you to be creative. I want you to make use of AI. Ask ChatGPT, what do you think it should be said? I want you to draw on your own personal experience. I want you to think to situations where you've witnessed a manager talk or communicate, and so forth. And what I'm also looking for is something in the answer which sort of talks to the root cause of the low morale. Why is there such low morale and frustration? What is causing it? Because in the communication, it needs to address that cause. What is the root cause? Why? Because this low staff morale and frustration is generally an indication of a couple of things. And there's generally only three things. One is processes. Nobody is certain and clear about what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. So that's process. I call it the 3 Ps. 2, it is people. It's either the wrong people in the wrong places. People don't have the right skills in the right places. So there's a people issue. So it's either a process issue or people issue. And then the last one is a performance issue. So those are the 3 Ps. So it's either a process, a people, or performance issue. And under people is also things like attitude, things like the way people see things, and so forth. And then the other one is performance issue. Performance issues lies with skills, or KSAs, skills, knowledge, and abilities. KSA. Do the people have the right knowledge in order to do their jobs? Do they have the right skills to do jobs? And do they actually have the ability to perform and do what they need to do? So processes you can generally fix. Job descriptions, workflow processes, SOPs, standard operating procedures, SLAs, service level agreements, job descriptions. All of those things are processes. Performance issues you can address. You can do training, you can do staff development, you can close the gaps in skills, and that would some way sort of talk to performance. When you have people issues, conflict, attitude, personality clashes, that is a bit more difficult to deal with. And in most cases, it is a separation issue, which means the company need to separate that person out. If it's a toxic person, that person needs to be separated from the business or from the team that they're working in. You can address some attitude issues, but it is sometimes very difficult to address an attitude issue. If the person is a skilled, highly skilled key personnel, meaning that the company can't function without them, then you need to find a way of addressing that P, that attitude area, or that personality area. But generally speaking, low staff morale is a result of the 3 Ps. Processes, people, or performance. 2 of them you can address. The third one, or the people aspect of one, is a bit more difficult to address. But it must be done, or else you won't be able to fix this. All right. So what am I saying? Be creative. I want to see you talk to the root cause, what is causing this, because that will inform how the supervisor is going to communicate. Make sense? Oh, we're coming on to the final question. I know it's been a long evening, so let me finish off. There's two more questions, and these are sort of very straightforward stuff that you can draw from your textbook. Based on the understanding of the key elements of the employment equity plan, draw up a 3-year employment equity plan for the Friendly Cafe, projecting the additional hiring of 20 new staff members during the next 3 years. So the question then is, why do they need 20 new staff members? So strategically as a business, where are they going? Are they expanding their restaurant to include 20 new people? What I want you to use the existing employment equity laws, please. I know there's new ones that are being promulgated at the moment, and I do know that those new ones, there has been some real grumblings and some real issues on it. So whichever ones are the most recent, the most relevant, the existing ones. All right. So employment equity plan, you can use the one on page where is it? Does anybody have a page number for me? Anyone? Oh, you're not sitting with the book in front of you. I would have thought. $520. It's actually right there at the back. 520. Employment Equity Act of 55, eliminating unfair discrimination. It gives you a whole breakdown there. Other important points in the Employment Equity Act is medical testing and so forth. And then if you page further, you'll see there is some templates. There's attendance register, employment details record. Okay, no, there's no employment equity plan. This you will have to do a bit of research online, and you'll find there is you'll find some quite readily online, some examples of them. All right. So I don't want you to give me a breakdown of the act. I just need the employment equity plan. And one page is more than sufficient. Okay. Alrighty. Question, the final question, question 11. Also quite a substantial question. So it says at the end of 3 years, decide they also want to adopt a BBE scorecard, even though they are a non-designated employer, based on the understanding of the elements of a generic scorecard. What could the Friendly Cafe scorecard look like? And again, you're going to have to do a bit of research. And then, so the scorecard element consists of ownership, management control, employment equity, skills development, preferential procurement, enterprise development, supplier development, and socioeconomic development. And those are the weightings. So there's an actual formula that you put in. So the question is, so there's under ownership, if you 51% black owned, then you would get 25%, management control, etc., and so forth. So each one of these elements have a weighting and have a calculation. Make sense? Question is, where do you find it? Again, in your textbook. I'm just looking forward quickly. 408 to 409. All right, here we go. World-Based Black Empowerment Act gives you a breakdown of it, and then it gives you the formulas. It's measured by a scorecard based on 5 elements: ownership, management control, skills development, enterprise development, and socioeconomic development. Once the score of organization has been calculated, converted into a level, and then it gives you a breakdown of it, of how to do the actual calculations. Okay, so page 408 to 409. All right. Let me see what else is there. That is it. Cool. Are there any questions on or comments on any of these questions? So let me go. Oh, I've kept you guys a lot. It's more than an hour, and I'm quite sure some of you are already close to bed. Desmond, go for it.
I'm halfway to bed. But anyway. Okay, so question 10, right? The employment equity plan.
Yeah.
So is it basically going to be like a strategic, like an objective strategic plan to say, okay, when these 20 new people come, this is what is going to happen, and we have these expectations, and this is what we're going to do? Is it basically what it is?
Something to that effect. Let me just, I'm trying to have a look in your textbook, because this textbook is, I don't quite like this textbook. I think there's a bit, yeah, I think they added a bit too much for the course that we're in. Let me see. Desmond, that is really what my understanding of it is. If I look at the mark allocation, it is really to say that, so you'll start off with the employment equity is this and this and this. So you'll give the theory of it, and you'll say, this is the plan. We want to employ X amount of Black women, so many white women, so many Black males, Black African males, etc. And you should then also, and then you should give me a reason for that. So the next part, question 11, sort of gives you that reason. So you can say, the reason why we're looking at this breakdown is because in 3 years' time, we would like to draw up a BB scorecard, and employment equity is part of the BE scorecard. Does that make sense?
Yes. I also wanted to ask, since it's a plan, right? Can I maybe draw like a table or something?
A table would be fine with an explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a table with an explanation would be good. Yeah. So just before I finish off, please, guys, coming out of the first assessment as well is in-text referencing. Students have lost marks due to not referencing consistently. When in doubt, reference. When in doubt, reference. Every second paragraph should have a reference in it. Every paragraph should have a reference in it, especially if you're drawing from the theory. There's quite a few of these questions, though, that you making up the answer, which is fine. Those are some of the, there's a few of them where you're making up the answer. But where it is necessary to put in the theory, you make sure that you reference that appropriately. All right, both in text as well as part of your reference list. Okay. So finally, any questions? Because I think I've gone on long enough now. Great.
No, I'm good for my side. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Barton. Guys, thank you very much, everybody, for your contribution and for listening and for taking the time to sign in. I'm looking forward to marking these assessments. And please, if there's anything, you can either WhatsApp or you can email me, and I'll get back to you. All righty. Awesome. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers.